Sean "Diddy" Combs, a name that has been synonymous with success, power, and controversy for over 3 decades. From the gritty streets of Harlem to the pinnacle of the music and business world, his story is one of ambition, reinvention, and an unstoppable drive to dominate every industry he touches. But behind the glitz, the platinum records, and the billion-dollar deals lies a world filled with rivalries, tragedies, and allegations that have kept him in the headlines for years. This is the rise, the reign, and the reckoning of Sean "Diddy" Combs. Sean John Combs was born on November 4, 1969, in Harlem, New York. His mother, Janice Combs, worked multiple jobs, including as a model and a teacher's assistant, while his father, Melvin Combs, was involved in the streets and had ties to infamous drug kingpin Frank Lucas. But Sean's life took a tragic turn before he was even old enough to understand what was happening. When he was just 2 years old, his father was shot and killed in Central Park in what was believed to be a drug-related execution. His murder remains one of the many unsolved killings tied to the drug trade in New York during that era, and to this day, Combs has spoken sparingly about the trauma it left on him. With her husband gone, Janice Combs made the decision to move young Sean and the rest of the family out of Harlem and into Mount Vernon, a suburban town just outside of New York City. She wanted to shield him from the same dangers that had taken his father's life, and she worked relentlessly to provide for him, ensuring he had everything he needed to succeed. But even though Sean was no longer in the rough streets of Harlem, he was still growing up in an era when young black men were constantly faced with challenges that could either make or break them. From an early age, Sean showed signs that he wasn't like the other kids around him. He had an undeniable energy, a hunger to stand out, and an obsession with success that seemed far beyond his years. He attended Mount St. Michael Academy, a private Catholic school in the Bronx, known for its strict discipline and rigorous academics. It was there that he earned the nickname Puffy, because of his tendency to huff and puff whenever he was upset or frustrated. But while many of his classmates were focused on schoolwork, sports, or hanging out, Sean had his mind set on something much bigger. Music had always been a part of his life. He was fascinated by hip-hop and R&B, studying the way artists carried themselves, the way they marketed their image, and the way they made people feel through their music. But more than anything, he was fascinated by the business behind it all. While most kids his age were still trying to figure out what they wanted to be when they grew up, Sean already knew. He wanted to run the music industry. After high school, he enrolled at Howard University, a historically black college in Washington, D.C. Officially, he was a business major, but he spent more time throwing parties, networking, and getting his foot in the door of the music world than he did in the classroom. His natural talent for organizing events and making connections quickly set him apart, and it wasn't long before he caught the attention of the right people. Through his growing network, he managed to land an internship at Uptown Records, one of the biggest R&B and hip-hop labels at the time, run by music executive Andre Harrell. This was the break he had been waiting for, and he wasted no time proving himself. Unlike most interns who simply ran errands and observed from the sidelines, Combs dove in headfirst. He worked tirelessly, staying late, taking on projects beyond his job description, and making sure everyone at the label knew his name. His hard work paid off. Within a short time, he was promoted to talent director, a role that gave him the ability to shape the careers of artists. He played a major role in developing the sound and image of acts like Jodeci and Mary J. Blige, pushing a new style that blended R&B's smooth vocals with hip-hop's raw energy. This fresh approach helped redefine the genre and put Uptown Records at the forefront of urban music in the early 90s. But despite his growing success at the label, Combs' ambition was bigger than Uptown. He wanted more control, more power, and more say in how the music industry operated. He had ideas that went beyond what the label's executives were comfortable with, and that led to tensions between him and Andre Harrell. In 1993, at just 23 years old, he was fired. Most people would have seen this as a devastating setback, but for Sean Combs, it was the opportunity he needed to build something of his own. Later that same year, he founded Bad Boy Records. The first major artist he signed was a young rapper from Brooklyn named Christopher Wallace, better known as the Notorious B.I.G. From the moment Combs heard Biggie rap, he knew he had found something special. He saw the raw storytelling ability, the charisma, and the hunger for greatness. Together, they crafted an image and a sound that would dominate the hip-hop world. By 1994, Biggie's debut album, Ready to Die, was released, and it became an instant classic. Songs like Juicy, Big Papa, and One More Chance took over the charts, and Biggie became one of the biggest stars in rap. Bad Boy Records was now a force to be reckoned with, and Combs was at the center of it all. But with success came enemies. The rise of Bad Boy Records coincided with the rise of another dominant force on the West Coast, Death Row Records, led by Suge Knight and Tupac Shakur. The rivalry between the two labels escalated into what would become one of the most infamous feuds in music history. Diss tracks were exchanged, public insults were thrown, and tensions grew to dangerous levels. In September 1996, Tupac Shakur was shot and killed in Las Vegas. 6 months later, in March 1997, the notorious B.I.G. was murdered in Los Angeles. Two of hip-hop's biggest stars, gone. To this day, no one has been officially charged in either murder, but conspiracy theories have persisted for decades, many of which have pointed fingers in Combs' direction. Despite the loss of his best friend and biggest artist, Combs didn't slow down. Instead, he stepped into the spotlight himself. Rebranding as Puff Daddy, he released his debut album, No Way Out, in 1997. The album's biggest hit, I'll Be Missing You, was an emotional tribute to Biggie and became one of the year's biggest songs. The album went on to win a Grammy and solidified Combs as more than just a businessman. He was now a star in his own right. Over the next few years, he continued to dominate music, signing new artists like Mace and The Lox, and expanding the reach of Bad Boy Records. But his success wasn't without controversy. In 1999, Combs and his then-girlfriend, Jennifer Lopez, were involved in a nightclub shooting in Manhattan. A gun was found in Combs' vehicle, and he was arrested on weapons possession and bribery charges. Though he was ultimately acquitted, his protege, Shine, was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Legal troubles, lawsuits, and allegations would continue to follow Combs throughout his career. Whether it was accusations of workplace mistreatment, disputes over unpaid royalties, or more serious allegations of misconduct, controversy seemed to be a constant presence in his life. Despite this, his empire continued to grow. He expanded into fashion with his Sean John clothing line, launched Ciroc Vodka into a billion-dollar brand, and built a business portfolio that made him one of the richest figures in entertainment. But with more recent allegations emerging in the 2020s, including new lawsuits and claims about his past behavior, many have begun to wonder if his reign is finally coming to an end. For over 30 years, Sean Diddy Combs has remained one of the most powerful figures in entertainment. But with the past catching up, the question remains: will he continue to reinvent himself, or is the empire he built beginning to crumble?